and welcome to another Fortnight on the Isle, my bi-weekly update series where there's a heck of a lot going on the last couple weeks. I've been pretty busy, there's definitely some things to talk about, and apparently where I re-recorded an entire half-hour long video just because I forgot to wear my hat the first time. So that's something that has happened this fortnight, but there's also several other things that have gone on this past fortnight. Of course, if you were here for the last one of these update videos a couple of weeks ago, you know that I recorded the last Fortnight on the Isle on Thursday instead of when I normally do on Friday, because that week I did a Salt Lake trip, and I gotta say it was a great trip going up there to kind of be around for that last day of Dragonsteel Nexus. Got to meet and hang out with several people, many booktubers, several authors as well, and it was overall a great time. It was a pleasure to meet booktubers such as Patrick Leo, Tutor Ramble, Austin and Richard are great. Talking Story, which is John and Jacob, they were also great. Met Jacob Bishop and Benghis Khan over the weekend as well, and had the great pleasure of being able to meet several authors, like I said, such as Christopher Rocchio, who's basically the reason that I went up to spend the weekend at Salt Lake in the first place. Larry Correa was there, Dave Butler, got to meet and talk with him a little bit. Steve Diamond, Brian Lee Durfee, Jason Cordova, Matt Dinneman, there's that I got to meet and talk to briefly in some cases, and in other cases I got to just straight up hang out and have dinner with. It was really, really great to meet all of you guys. Very grateful to have been able to take that trip, and very glad that I did make that trip, and it was an awesome, if exhausting, weekend. Aside from that, I've been kind of busy on channel related stuff for the most part. Last couple weeks have definitely taken a heavy toll as far as like video prepping, like January and February for the both of these two main channels of mine, this one and then of course King Cruiser the second. Definitely going to have a lot of content stuff going on that I am excited for and that I look forward to sharing with you all, but that stuff has been bonkers. Work life has been pretty bonkers. I feel like life is going a little bit too fast and I need a break, which thank goodness for the holidays, but we'll see how much of a break I'm actually able to get with those. Needless to say, life has been crazy, with another couple reasons for that being that I just saw my best friend helped him pack the last couple days to have him move out of town. So that's something in my personal life that's taking a toll on just time and energy and mental energy as well. That kind of thing is just kind of a bummer in a way. And if you happen to be this far in the video and want to be introduced, if you're one of the 18 people who subscribed because of last Thursday's video, hello, thank you for watching that video and subscribing. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy your stay. That video's gone bonkers. It's like my third or maybe even my second best performing video at this point. Kind of crazy. But with all that being said, let's jump into what I normally do at the start of these videos, being the bi-weekly reading, everything that I've basically read over the last couple of weeks. Now, despite things like, you know, going to Salt Lake for a weekend where I didn't really get to read and being busy otherwise, I have gotten a surprising amount of reading done. First off, I did finish reading Wrath by John Gwynne, fourth book and final book in The Faithful and the Fallen. I gotta say, the end of this edition of the print that I have in the US, I don't know if this is like a problem with all of the books or just like this specific printing of the book that I got. Maybe it's just this one book that I got for some reason. There's an entire like leaf in here that is like a repeat of 50 pages just inserted there in the middle, like in the last couple chapters. That really confused me for a bit of time, so that was entertaining. I had to actually use my UK paperback to just kind of deal with that printing problem that I had in this. I enjoyed Wrath. I'm not going to speak too much about it in this video though, because I do have a review of that on Goodreads if you want to check that out, which we'll briefly talk about that a little bit later. I'm very happy with that review, and that review actually goes into pretty good depth for the book. It does have spoilers, mind you. Obviously those spoilers are hidden, they're marked within the review, but you know, I'm proud of that review if you want to check it out. Otherwise, I will talk about this more in depth in January in both a review and a ranking for The Faithful and the Fallen as a whole. Like I said, I'm not going to say much here. I enjoyed the end of it. I liked how it wrapped a lot of things up, even if I had certain minor complaints, which is a lot of what that Goodreads review goes into. So yeah, that I finished this, I liked it, but I don't think it's my favorite in the series, we'll say. Next up, I have gotten a little bit of the ways into We Who Wrestle with God by Jordan Peterson. I've always enjoyed the way that he talks about psychology and how that kind of coincides with theology. and specifically the stories of theology and why those things are important in accordance with the psychological mind. Always liked his insight as far as that kind of thing goes, and that's basically what this book is about. So I read the foreword, which was just kind of preamble and setup. Part 1, which felt like it was setting up a lot of what the rest of the book is going to do, and I've only just started part 2, so I haven't really hit a lot of the meat of this quite yet, but I'm enjoying it so far for what it is. That's always good. Otherwise, the main thing that I've been reading for the last couple of weeks has actually been the classic masterpiece, as this copy calls it, Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth. I've read all of part 1, a little over a quarter of the book, about 300 pages out of just under 1100, so no small amount of it for as short a period of time as I've been reading it. As I was kind of guaranteed by a couple people, this is pretty fast reading, and thank goodness for that, because if this was not fast, considering how long it is, that would be detrimental. I think there's a very small chance that I'm actually able to finish this soon enough to actually include it in my top 10 books of the year, maybe, if it ends up being as good throughout the whole thing as part 1 was. So that's kind of a little bit of a, you know, foreshadowing to something that may come next year. Been really enjoying Pillars of the Earth. I can't wait to continue more of it, quite frankly. In fact, it's actually been the most use that I've gotten of my Kindle basically since I've had it, has been for reading this book specifically. But let's move on into the bi-weekly writing, in which it's going to be another broken record sort of situation, where I haven't written anything for the Reign of Ash because of doing a bunch of video prep and kind of channel stuff, basically, for the new year. Haven't really had time to do writing for the Reign of Ash, even though I thought I was going to while I was in Salt Lake. Turned out that didn't end up being the case. I'll definitely come back around to this in the new year, just haven't really had the opportunity for a little while to get back into it, especially since I know it'll take a little bit of energy to get back into it, based off of where I left myself stuck at. So that's not ideal, but it'll resolve itself in time. Otherwise, I have done a decent amount of writing for blogs and reviews, you know, that kind of thing. I did mention my Wrath review, so 2,900 words was written for my review of that. As I said, it kind of goes into some spoilers in some sections of it, but overall, I'm very happy with how that review turned out. One of my longest, and I think probably my best review for a decent while, or at least a couple months at this point. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed writing that review, and I think it turned out pretty good. Beyond that review, a lot of my word count stuff has kind of just been like notes and kind of prepping things for other stuff. We'll start off, I guess, with like music related words. I have written 1,500 words over the last couple weeks for music related stuff, with 500 of those being a actual proper review for a song called Levity by Up All Night. That is a song that my brother wrote that I really enjoyed. It ended up being the top song on my Spotify Wrapped for the year, and is going to be pretty high up on the singles of the year list for me. So I decided to write an actual dedicated review for that on musicboard.app. So if you visit that website, that's where that review is at. We'll actually talk a little bit about that site a little bit later in this video. But yeah, I mentioned that this would be up on the singles of the year list. That is because the other 1,000 words or so that I wrote for music related stuff this fortnight has been prepping my album of the year video, kind of getting albums and EPs and singles kind of in their places, structuring the review, writing the introduction and conclusion. I've had some things kind of move around as I've been catching up on some releases that I missed over the year, and obviously some new releases from December in general. But I've been working on that album of the year video, and about 1,000 words in that so far. I've got a lot more to go as I actually kind of write the sections for each album, but that still has to be finalized before I can actually do that. So I'll get to that in a couple of weeks. And similarly, for film related stuff, I have a movie of the year list where I'm going to rank all of the films that I watched this year, which isn't many, mind you. It's only like eight, maybe like 8 or 9 movies over the course of 2024. So not that many movies, but I'm going to rank them all in that video. I've got about 500 words written for that, and got it organized, of course. And then also I've got 2,300 words for gaming related stuff, 400 of which was for the game of the year video, which is also organized basically and ready to go. So those 3 year-end wrap-up things I'm going to work on definitely as time goes on here, and the other 1,900 or so words, gaming-related words that I've written for blog stuff, has been more notes for The Last of Us Part 2, which again we'll talk about a little bit later. For now, let's move on to the coming releases, all 10 videos that I have coming out between this channel and my second channel over the next 2 weeks. Buckle up, there's quite a few of them. This Tuesday on the 24th is going to be my review of The Terminal Man by Michael Crichton, one that I had prepared several months ago, but then didn't actually end up having a spot in the video schedule to put on it until now, so it's finally getting done now in December. This Thursday on the 26th, the day after Christmas, is going to be a Christmas time book tag video. So a tag that I got put in and decided to actually kind of follow through with this time around. That's what that video is going to be. Just a shorter, simpler, easier video that I thought was fun and actually worth doing. So I went and did that for this Thursday. Next Sunday on the 29th will be my 2025 reading plans. So basically a general TBR for 2025. In the last couple of years, I've made that general TBR sometime in January. This year I decided it would make sense to actually do that in December. And well, if that video makes anywhere near as much of a splash as last Thursday's video, which was the top 5 classics I will read in 2025, kind of like a precursor to what that general TBR video is going to be, well, I hope that general TBR video does well. I think it probably will. I doubt it'll do as well as Thursday's video did, but we'll see. Either way, that comes out next Sunday. I'm excited for you to check it out. Next Tuesday on the 31st, the very last day of the month, is going to be a review of the Demigods and Magicians trilogy of short stories by Rick Riordan, you know, combining the Percy Jackson and King Chronicles series into one. Takes place obviously after the King Chronicles trilogy and Heroes of Olympus. So I reviewed that trilogy of short stories. That comes out on Tuesday. Next Wednesday, on the very first day of 2025, will be my 2024 year in review. So kind of like a partner video to State of Affairs, basically talking about the entirety of the year and my hopes and plans and what I kind of plan to change and do differently for the channel in the new year. That's what that video is going to cover. Looking forward to that, just like I did last year. Next Thursday on the 2nd will be my Christmas December book haul video. Decided I would get that put out before the rest of the book binge stuff for the new year would happen. So that's going to be the first book binge episode technically of January. But yeah, that comes out on the 2nd. And then on the 4th, so the Saturday before the next Fortnight on the Isle video, is when my January State of Affairs, the regular monthly thing, is going to go up. So 7 videos for the main channel, then 3 for the second channel. Of course, on the Fridays, the 27th and the 3rd, are going to be 2 more episodes for the Kingdom Hearts 2 Let's Play. Getting into the end game now. Pretty close to finished. I think there are only 4 episodes remaining at the time of this video's release, so that's pretty exciting. Otherwise, next Monday is actually going to be starting a new series on the second channel called Music Mania, which will happen every Monday. Next Monday's video is going to be an episode 0 of sorts, introducing the series and kind of what it's going to be, which again we'll talk about in just a moment. For entertainment talk, I mentioned writing more notes for the Last of Us 2 blog review thing that I'm going to do one of these days. I finished my Last of Us 2 New Game Plus run. Came out to being about 27 hours or so. I think my first run was about 33 hours, so that totals to about 60 hours between the runs so far, and I have yet to play any of the no return mode in the remastered edition of the game. So that's pretty exciting and means that I'm coming up on the end of my general note taking, I think, for that a critical analysis. But like I said, I still kind of have that no return mode to go into, and then I'll actually be starting to script that video. I'm excited to play some more of that mode because or actually start playing that mode rather. I'm excited to start playing that mode, I gotta say, because I'm one of the weirdos that actually really likes the gameplay in The Last of Us. It seems that's not necessarily a super popular opinion, but I like it, so I'm excited to play that mode. Otherwise, the only thing that's really going on the last couple weeks for gaming is that I've really had to resist jumping on the FOMO for Indiana Jones. That game looks great. I really want to play it, and having to wait until like 2025 before I touch that because I want to finish my The Last of Us 2 stuff before I get into that. It's actually kind of difficult, not gonna lie. But that is all that I have for entertainment talk this time around. Let's go into music talk, which will be the final time music talk will appear on Fortnite on the Isle here on the main channel because of Music Mania on Mondays. Like I said, check out the second channel for that. The introductory episode for that next Monday, explaining what the series is going to be. So I'm not going to waste any time doing that here. like I did in the first attempt recording this video. Let's talk about the music that came out over the last couple weeks that I've checked out, including some releases that I missed because of recording the previous update, prior to the Friday when a lot of music stuff actually comes out. So, Landmarks released a new single, or a new double single of sorts, in preparation for a new album in 2025, and Sulfur, the first part of that double single, is great. I really like that song, and I'm looking forward to the album because of it. Andromeda, one of my favorite instrumental artists, finally, after several months kind of away doing other stuff, has come back and released a new single called Fade Away, which I enjoyed. I look forward to hearing some more stuff from him again in the future as he kind of gets back into the swing of things. The band that released, I believe it was my favorite thing that came out in 2022, was an EP by the band Abbey Falls. And Abbey Falls did a joint single with Breakdown of Sanity over the last couple weeks called Purge, which was a fantastic single. Really enjoyed that song. Maybe not quite on the level of the songs on that EP, but it was a good song nonetheless. I also forgot to talk about Breakdown of Sanity the last time I was doing music talk. They released a new single on their own called Perfect Enemy. I think both of these songs are great. Look forward to hearing more from these guys, since their handful of singles they did a couple years back didn't necessarily wow me too much, so I hope they actually come swinging full force with a full album at some point pretty soon. Next up is an EP from a buddy of mine, Cameron. He released an EP called Make the Dark Crawl under the band name Never Stops Breaking. If you watched my Album of the Year video earlier this year covering 2023, you'll know that one of my favorite singles of the year was actually one of the songs from this EP. There was definitely some development hell stuff kind of going on with this one, complications between Cameron and like the producer and whatever else was going on. So this is a release of kind of like demos and whatnot. Like, they're still good enough, demos and whatnot, like they're complete songs, but maybe not in the full final production state that you might typically find music, because just needed to be able to release the music in general because of, like I said, the kind of development hell complications going on with the EP. I think that if you like that kind of early 2000s era of early alt metal, kind of late grunge, but most especially the early alt metal, like if you like Breaking Benjamin's first couple of albums, you'll get a lot of those vibes from this EP, Make the Dark Crawl. And aside from there being one song where the vocals for whatever reason don't seem to like line up on beat with everything else, that is a little weird. The riff on that song is great, but everything else is kind of weird. Everything else on that EP is great, and I definitely recommend it to alt metal fans, so definitely check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, I talked about last time an album by Chugaboom coming out. Trust me, I'm still a proctologist. That's the title of the album. These guys definitely fall a little bit more on the satirical side of this metalcore scene, we'll say. And while I really liked their last album, I believe a 2022 album, and I might have included it in like honorable mentions for that album of the year, I think this one's just okay. It wasn't anything super notable this year, which is unfortunate because I thought the last album was really, really good. But going back into instrumental artists, the band Distant Dream came back and kind of surprise dropped an album called End of the World We Know, which I thought was really good. I listened to this while packing up for my Salt Lake trip, and it was a good and worthy time. Another band called Victims, spelled VCTMS, which is a band that I never had on my radar up until pretty recently, dropped an album/EP. Like, the amount of songs and the length of the album is like kind of in that gray area where it could reasonably be considered both an album and an EP. For example, I think the EP that I talked about earlier, Never Stops Breaking, Make the Dark Crawl, I think that one has more songs and is longer than this album called Pain Processing by Victims. The classifications of these things can get confusing, but I would say if you really like angry metalcore, and especially if you're somebody who likes the sort of like really, if you like the specific kind of angry sound that Slipknot had going on in their first couple of albums, I would say if you like kind of took the essence of that, made it metalcore, you kind of have an idea of what Pain Processing is building off of. And I thought that sound was really cool. I liked it. It's probably not going to be a great, promotional tool for them, for me to say it like that, because there are a lot of metalheads, and especially if you're in a core, like, you just don't like Slipknot for some reason. I don't know why. Slipknot's great. But yeah, that came out. I liked it a lot. And then another surprise drop that I personally was not expecting was Imminence, who already released an album in 24. 2024, released a 10th year anniversary version of their first album, which I believe that first album is just called I, like the letter I. This re-release is called The Reclamation of I, and I believe what this re-release does, if I'm remembering the Instagram post properly, is I believe they re-recorded vocals for this, and then they remixed and remastered the album. So I checked out the album for the first time through this version of it. I would say it was pretty good. Either way, that is basically everything that I have for this video. As a way to kind of wrap up the music talk section, if you enjoy metal, and especially if you're in the metalcore deathcore side of things, maybe a little bit of prog metal mixed in there, I would definitely love to have you over at Music Mania over on the second channel. Like I said, tune in a week from tomorrow on the second channel, which is linked below, by the way, to check out kind of the introduction of what that series is going to be and come along for the ride. Recommend me songs or albums or artists that I don't actually know about, or releases that I miss in any given week for whatever reason. Well, anything like that, I'd definitely love to have you come over to the second channel there. So, you know, consider that if you would like. Either way, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you stick around for whatever I have coming next. I gave you a list of like 10 videos coming out on the 2 channels. And yeah, it's going to be a crazy end of the year, especially as we move into the new year. But I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be busy. It's going to be hectic. But it's going to be a fun time as well. So thank you for watching this video. If you did, have a very Merry Christmas here in just a few days. A great holiday season over this coming fortnight. I hope you have a good time. I'll be back in the next video. I just hope to see you there.